Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Freimer, Traffic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Tuesday, and it is August 6th. So, well, I would say a bit of a bounce day today. I mean, a very nice bounce today. We didn't exactly close on the highs of the day, so it kind of leaves a little bit to the imagination in terms of what we're going to get next, but we'll kind of go over that in tonight's video and talk about what acted very well and where the indices are sitting at this point after a lot of volatility so far in the month of August. Risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer right there. And thank you for the feedback. I've been getting some good feedback from the videos. I appreciate that. It gets me supercharged to do these videos at the end of the day. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I appreciate that type of thing. So, well, a couple stories for the day. I want to talk about, I've been leading off with kind of talking about the VIX a lot. So the VIX did move down today. When I came in today, I was looking for basically the VIX to come back under like 30, and it did that, right? I mean, the VIX was down about 28% for the day. I mean, that's a colossal move. So that's good. It didn't close on the lows. I mean, it did come up at the end of the day. I also have what, I think is important to monitor here. And I have someplace over here. I have the curve of the VIX, right? So, if you've been hearing about the term backwardation, right, you probably hear more about the term backwardation than you do contango. Contango is the futures market and how futures pricing normally works. And what that means really quick is if you have different futures contracts, and so for example, there's monthly contracts in the VIX, right? Normally, because of the risk and time as you go further out, there's higher prices associated when you go out further along what's called further along the curve, further along out in maturity. It's the same thing when you look at an option contract, right? If you're looking at a front barring in like any earnings event or anything like that that's in front of you, but let's say if you're looking at like SPY maturity going out several months, right? You'll notice that if the further you go out, the higher the price is going to be in the premium, right? In your option contract, that's because there's possibility of more events that happen, right? So volatility is a little bit higher, right? There's also, you've got time decay and so forth. So all those things happen, of course, as the option contract goes along, but you're going to have to pay more to get to buy time, right? So that's like normal, and it's not really contango. That's more for futures markets. But you can kind of understand the concept. When you go further out, you have to pay more. Well, in this sense, you don't have to pay more to go further out in the VIX contract. And there's you can do some type of trading here too if you're really experienced. But right now, the front month is really bid up, and obviously it got all the way up to what, 65, but it's been coming down. But it's still like, here's the contract for this month, right? And if you go out, so this month is just so much more heightened than all these months when you go further and further out. So that's called backwardation. And a lot of times what people tend to look for is for this to calm down and this to return to, instead of backwardation, to more of a contango market where these months are more expensive than the current month. So we're not really there yet. I would say that we're not out of the woods, and that would be good for confirmation purposes. But again, that doesn't mean that you can't find really good day trades. Like, I think that there was a lot of good trades today, and some follow through from the bounce that we saw yesterday. So, we'll talk about the S&P futures just for a minute here. So, it's tough to really find a lot to go on here when you're looking at these market moves down. What I like to see is price get above the 5-period moving average, but we're way below, because of the velocity of the move to the downside. There's a lot more that, there could be a lot of filling in between before we get to the 5-day moving average. Now, we did get to the 200-day moving average, but also notice we're way below the value area for the month. So there's just not a lot of like things that you could get from the daily chart at this point to say, hey, this is this is a great level to trade off of. And this is an inside candle, by the way, today, which means that this is this body of this candle is way inside this one. So there's no change in trend, right? You just had a nice bounce today. as far as we go. Now, another way to kind of look at this too, I get a lot of my signals from the 1 hour chart, and we do have obviously a change in all the selling pressure that happened. Finally, price got above some of these short-term moving averages and moved up. You'll notice that I drew like a bit of a trend line here, and I could actually delete this because it wasn't perfectly drawn, I guess, but something like this at this point, right? So we really don't want to go below that line. If we start to break back below, we're losing that upside momentum, and now it's back. The sellers will be back in control, or the bears will be back in control. And it doesn't mean like that. That we go all the way back down here, but it's a possibility. But we're kind of breaking this like upside trend line momentum, right? And also note for the week, we're just way below the value area. Again, I'll draw a trend line here or two when we just don't have a lot of technicals to really rely on. We took out this virgin point of control, and we went a little bit further, but we did bounce from there. So that's what we're dealing with the S&P. The Qs, I'll go through all three of these indices really quickly. The Qs, same thing, right? Deeply oversold in the short term. And you could look at the NAMO and then in the NIMO. The NAMO got really oversold. I'm not going to go through that chart with you. I sent that out last night, but we got to a really oversold level. So we've got a bounce. That doesn't mean that we're going to get much more than a bounce. I don't know, it's, and again, this is a tough chart to analyze over here, right? Because we don't have anything to really hang our hat on, right? And here's also the, I did not draw a trend line here, but you could see, we kind of faded there at the end of the day. So again, selling pressure, probably better to be seen in NASDAQ futures. But here's the selling, the move down, right? We're not doing that anymore, but maybe there's a little bit more backing and filling going on, right? IWM. All right, so what I'm doing in this video is just kind of mapping out several scenarios, right? So that you're kind of prepared. Also, I'm going to just insert a couple of things as we go along and look at these technicals, but also keep in mind that this is the weekly chart, by the way, that the August month is a tough month. It's filled with a lot of traps and a lot of turns, and August is typically a more difficult month. Again, we're talking about on average, right? That August and September are difficult months. So there you go too. There's your nice bounce, but we didn't close anywhere near the highs for the day. So there's IWM. A lot of nice charts to kind of I can kind of go through some of the charts that I was concentrating on, but there you have it. Like there's just not. I'll just kind of end here with the index review. We just don't have a lot of things to say, okay, like this looks really great. It doesn't mean that single name stocks aren't going to work. I traded a couple of them today. I also found that this was interesting, right? Bonds down 2.2% today. That's a heavy move back to the downside for bonds. So, you started to think about how great it was going to be to like refinance your mortgage or so forth if you bought recently, if this move was going to carry. But look at this move the last couple of days in bonds, and that means yields are back going higher a bit. Right. So I'm going to show you TNX, which is just which is the yield, just so that you can kind of make some comparison here to where we've been. Right. Here's the yield that's moving lower. So yeah, I mean, we're off the lows, right, from where we were. Right. This is the 10-year. All right. So just a couple things to kind of to note. I've talked about the VIX already. In terms of areas that did well today, it was the area that rallied the most today was the crypto stocks. Those were the most oversold probably. So again, a lot of like oversold bounces. Transports did well today, leisure, and Chinese internet names rallied the most from the open. What I spent a lot of time looking at was just some of our watch list names. I tend to really pay attention to relative strength and strong earnings, right? Strong earnings, those names are the ones that I'm going to want to go after they've had some dips to them. So, GoDaddy, first of all, did not have much of a dip at all on earnings. And that to me is also really nice when you've got a lot of volatility on the tape and something that is in I believe that GoDaddy is in some indices, and this held up really well. So this made a new high today. Again, didn't close on the highs today, but this was another name that I had been watching, VRNS. I bought this name today. It was traded right around here, and I was able to take a couple targets in this thing today. But this is a nice software security name. By the way, I'm seeing, there's a lot of names that I'm seeing in the software type space that have been just kind of showing up on my screens. ServiceNow has been acting well, although it did not close outside of the value area. I have not traded this one, but I've been watching it. 798.70 is the level to watch there. Another one that I put on last week and kind of just battled through the volatility last week and was able to take a target on this name. But this is Zeta. This is a small cap name in the space. Another one that I'm watching too is SFM. Right, had strong earnings, a little bit of a move back. I don't know if it's going to move all the way back into here, but pretty strong. CRS is another name. This is a steel name that does like alloy, right? So like these are the names that I think in uptrends. Now they're not, many of them are not back to their highs, but again, they're just showing some really nice strength. Another name too, which I think is still a little bit dicey the way that this thing moves, but this is Powell, right? Powell Industries. Nice bounce, did get in, got to the top of the value area and held it. So again, off the highs from recent earnings. Melly did well again today, right? There's a VPOC up there at 1881, but that's another name that had, again, see the theme, like strong earnings. I would much rather play with these names that don't have that overhead resistance than some of the other names. All right, and a few other names to go over too. TMDX, very nice. Again, didn't close on the highs. That's why I take targets, and I took a target or two. And this one, where's my blotter for the day? I took my second target at 160. Where this thing closed, well, decently off the highs. This thing it moves a lot. So in my opinion, you have to be taking targets in some of these names for something that goes all the way up to 160 and closes at where did it close? Like right around 156. Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense to be taking targets. I tried some ARM today. Every once in a while I'll get into a name that sees a lot of option activity. So, and I just thought at this point the risk to reward isn't bad. We'll see if it gets a little bit of a boost from SMCI, which is up after hours. It's crazy about this SMCI, or at least it was up after hours. Is it now down? Oh, it's giving back the gains. It's crazy about this SMCI is we have a ton of earnings reports after the close today, and the S&P wasn't moving at all until what did I do with this? Sorry, I'm missing my screens here. There we go. The S&P was, if all the names that reported after the close today, and there's a lot of them, FTNT is up nicely. Cirrus Logic, Upstart is actually up too. It's a name that you don't normally see that have good earnings, but they've had a nice move. Halo is up. Some of these are smaller cap names, but the market didn't react at all. All of a sudden, SMCI comes out and SPY moves and the Qs move. So just interesting what this market is finding as is moving the market, right? And then of course you've got a decent amount of names to the downside. AMSC, which is another semi name, which is acting pretty decently for a while, not any longer. That name's down 11.5%. Airbnb is down 13%. Trex, they go into home building and flooring. They're down 14%. Dex, yeah, SMCI, wow, is down 9% now. So again, can't hold the gains. Interesting with this company, right? I was talking about this with Joel from the Benzinga show, and I did not trade this name for earnings. I wanted to watch, and I know how important this name is to the AI group. But again, it made such a big difference. The market really moved on their earnings report, but this name has to get out of the pattern of making lower highs. So I have no position in this, but I do have a little position in ARM, which might be affected by this. But since it made this crazy big you could call it now a blow off top. Once this thing hit 1200, you got lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, tried here, failed, another lower high, and that's the pattern. So this name hasn't really done anything special. Now I know it's given some trading opportunities here and there, but it hasn't really done anything special since back in March, which is a long time to wait for a name to kind of recover. But that's where it's sitting sitting below that 200-day moving average as well. So I'm going to have to retract. I put out a tweet saying that, the show's not over for AI, but certainly, maybe the last, well, I'm not going to say anything. I don't like to make calls like that about trends moving down, but you're really not seeing much momentum in these names. NVIDIA, by the way, and congratulations if you made money on NVIDIA, but I think you really have to watch it here. Right? I think that you have to be selling into these bounces until it reports earnings. What do I mean by that? Well, here's your lower high in NVIDIA. Here's the VPOC takeout, which called the bottom perfectly. But notice the bounce. It could not get into the value area for August. It got stuffed there. And remember when everybody was doing their victory laps too, at the end of last month, when Nvidia rallied too, notice it failed at the bottom of the July value area. So again, these things become significant, right? About whether a name could turn the corner. So it could not turn the corner and get back out of this pattern of lower highs here as well. It got rejected here, and it also kind of got rejected as well as at the bottom of the value area. So I was going to mention a couple other names. This is FTAI. This name brought me a good day today because I added, as I talked about in yesterday's video, I added right around the lows. I also like this name too in this space. This is How Met Aerospace. I call it How I Met Your Mother Aerospace, but that's a bad joke. It's just the symbol is HWM. But again, it may need to straighten itself out here a little bit and back and fill, but the name had really good earnings. All right, guys, I'll leave it there. And again, kind of what I said in my midday video was still take things one day at a time with this market volatility, and given that we're in a very tough month. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.